Hello, Franklin families. This is Mrs. Grohard, the principal at Franklin Elementary School. Today, I'm going to be sharing with you some information about the IREAD 3 assessment that all third graders have to take. It's a requirement from the Indiana Department of Education. I know the screen says loading right now. There we go. There are two presentations today. There's one at 9:30 a.m. and one at 3:30 p.m. If you are unable to make those or just need a refresher after meeting, this video will be available. So what is IREAD 3? IREAD 3 is a reading-based assessment that we have to do through the Indiana Department of Education. It tests the Reading Indiana Academic Standards for third grade. So it's looking at all of their all the reading skills that they should have as by the time they're in third grade. The IREAD 3 test this year will be administered on March 18th through the 22nd of this year, so next month in just a couple weeks. Generally, it takes us about 3 days, but we have some extra days for makeups. In addition, if any student misses the entire test or needs to retake it, which we will talk about later in the presentation, those dates are May 28th through June 3rd. It does actually go longer than that, but June 3rd is our last day of school, and so I would like to retest students before they leave for summer break. So the purpose of this is the Indiana Department of Education created this test because, according to them, everybody if you're in third grade, needs to be a proficient reader before moving on to fourth. According to the Indiana Department of Education, students that do not pass IREAD 3 are supposed to be retained. However, they have an amendment where the schools can make that final decision. So just because they do not pass does not mean 100% that they are going to be retained in third grade, but it is a possibility. What is assessed? So the test is going to look at the Indiana academic standards for basic reading standards. There's 3 different sessions. They look at things like beginning sounds, ending sounds, vowel sounds, things like that. Again, it is comprised of 3 test sessions. We usually do them in 1 or 2 days, depending on how long it is. Sometimes we spread that out over 3, depending on how the test is structured. Again, those dates are March 18th through March 22nd. So what have we been doing to prepare your child? We have been preparing your child to read since they've entered Franklin in kindergarten. So learning their letters, their vowel sounds, their beginning sounds, ending sounds, and then eventually on to reading comprehension. How we monitor that through their time through all grades and especially third. The teachers are providing standard-based instruction and daily assessment of student progress. You may hear your child talk about exit slips or exit tickets. Every day, the teachers assess, not necessarily for a grade, but to see if the students are understanding what they're teaching, and so they know how best to prepare lessons for the next day. We use that information to adjust instruction, to differentiate instructional practices. All that means is sometimes different kids need different things, so we work on what each individual child needs. We use a few different assessments to help us with that besides what the classroom teachers see. We use SRI, NWEA, Reading Running Records, and RTI. All of this information helps us best meet the needs of your child. So let's start with SRI. SRI stands for Scholastic Reading Inventory. It is a test they take a couple times a year. You may hear your child talk about their Lexile level or their reading level, and it's a number. So this number helps us understand what books are going to be best for them and able to level the books. So they read a book that's not too easy, but is challenging enough to increase their reading skills and comprehension, but also not too hard where they're not understanding any of it. So a third grader should be between 600 and 900. Teachers usually discuss these levels with you at parent-teacher conference. Your child should know their Lexile level, but if they don't, you can reach out to your child's teacher to find out that information. The expected growth per year is about 100 points from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. That's what we expect students to grow. NWEA, we give that in fall, winter, and spring. The entire district takes that K through 12. This measures what your student is ready to learn. So this is not a pass-fail test, but the scores tell us where, for example, in third grade, an average third grader typically scores in reading. So for example, a typical average third grader at the beginning of the year should be about a 188.3, middle of the year, a 195.6, and at the end of the year, a 198.6. So as you can see, that students are typically projected to grow 10 points throughout the year. After each test, the students are we are able to see what skills they're lacking and what skills they're ready to learn, so we know where to start with them and help them. This is also where Exact Path comes in. Exact Path sets them up on a path based on their NWEA scores. We can always adjust that ahead or back depending on necessity, because we know sometimes students just don't test well and that's not where they're really at, so that can always be adjusted. RTI is response to instruction. So students that may be a little bit more behind in reading may be in our morning programs or working with our paraprofessional during the day, where they get pulled out for 30 minutes to receive some additional reading support. So IREAD 3, this is last year's testing times. We have not received testing information as far as the exact times for this year, but this has been pretty much the same over the last 5 years, so I don't anticipate that it's going to change much. So as you can see, they're testing a total of about 30 minutes a day. Some of that is instruction, and then the rest of that is working time. So again, that's why we spread it out. We're not going to test the students for hours and hours and hours a day. That would not be productive either. This year, all of the test is going to be online. If you notice at the top of this, it says paper pencil practice test and operating testing times. The practice test probably, to my knowledge, is still paper pencil, but the actual test that they do is all online this year. This is the first time we're taking the first assessment all online. So I'm going to go through a couple sample items so you can see what the students exactly are going to be working on and types of questions you're going to hear. So the first one is word analysis, beginning and ending sounds. The following items illustrate the type of word analysis items that assess students' understanding of beginning and ending sounds. A sample item precedes each set of items in the test. So that means they always do a practice 1 or 2 before the students are actually tested. So the teacher is going to read aloud the boldface directions, and the bottom part is in the student book. So the students don't have the directions. All they have is, like for beginning sounds, they have the word gray, guest, and glove in their book. So they have to wait for the teacher to read it so they know what they're supposed to pick. So the teacher would read aloud. Look at the words for number 1. Find the word that has the same beginning sound as grass. Grass. Fill in the circle that goes with the answer you choose. So then the students would look at gray, guest, and glove and decide which one would have would be the best choice for the first beginning sound. The teacher would wait until everybody has made a choice and then move on to the next one. And the same thing for ending sounds. The first part is not in there. The students just have the words. Look at the words for number 2. Find the word that has the same ending sound as rain. Rain. Fill in the circle that goes best with the answer you choose. So another type of problem that they're going to have is they're going to have to look at vowel sounds. It's going to assess their understanding just of vowel sounds. So this part the students do silently. It says the students read silently the word in bold and choose the word that has the same vowel sound as the underlined part of the word shown in bold. Only words in bold and answer choices appear in the student book. So in this one, we have sad with the A underlined. So they have to figure out which word has that same sound. So if you notice, they all have the letter A in it because it's not about the letter, it's about the sound. So we have sad, pain, chart, crash, and waste. So it's saying that A sound. So that's what they're looking for. Another one is synonym and antonyms. So it's going to give them a section, and part of this the teacher reads aloud. So they're going to choose the item that means the same or about the same as the underlined word. So for example, for like number 4 in their book, it's going to say was sad. Sad is the underlined word. So what word means about the same as sad? Angry, careful, excited, or unhappy. And then they have antonyms, which are the opposite. So to give away, give is the underlined word. So they need to come up with the opposite of that, either help, take, offer, or send. And homographs, they need to choose one word that goes in both blanks and makes sense. So a blank is coming down the track. You can blank your dog to fetch the newspaper. So in this case, it would be train, because the car can come down the track, but you can car your dog to fetch the newspaper would not make much sense. They also have suffixes and context clues. So for suffixes, they're going to find the word that has the suffix underlined. So they're going to need to remember what a suffix is, because during the test we cannot tell them. So a suffix is the ending, the correct ending sound. So in this case, it would be careless, because less is a suffix, where CKER is not necessarily a suffix. Context clues, they're going to have to read a short passage or a couple sentences and be able to either fill in the sentence based on the context clues. So close the front blank so the warm air stays inside the house. You may want to put on extra blank if you are still cold. So they look at number 8. The choices are box, case, door, or lid. So we could say the one that makes the most sense would be door. Close the front door so the warm air stays in the house. You may want to put on an extra sweater if you are still cold. We could put on an extra shoe, but I don't know that that's going to help me warm up. And then they have vocabulary and reading comprehension. They're going to have to read a short paragraph and answer some questions. Number 10 states, the author writes that no one knows for certain where snow fleas go. Which of these words means the opposite of certain? So sometimes it also includes some of those other skills. So again, those were some samples for the test. If you have additional questions on how to help prepare your student, please see your teacher. In the past, we have given IREAD 3 and I-STEP. There is no I-STEP anymore. The new state assessment is called I-LEARN. I-STEP also used to be given in 2 parts, where we took one usually in March and one at the end of April, beginning of May. I-LEARN is one testing window, and that window is April 22nd through May 28th. No, they do not test that whole time. That gives schools that long to make sure every student is tested in testing grades. So 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders all take I-LEARN. So that gives us plenty of time to make sure that we can complete testing. Again, the IREAD 3 assessment, which what this presentation was primarily about, is March 18th through the 22nd. And then beginning at the end of April, we will be starting I-LEARN. The state usually gives us results pretty quick. We don't have an exact timeline for the IREAD 3 results. We usually get those hopefully by no later than the end of April. One requirement for students that do not pass IREAD 3 is that they are required to participate in a remediation program. So one, we will send information home whether your child passed or not and what their score was. If they did not pass, they will need to participate in a remediation program, which means an extra academic program to help them catch up on their reading skills. And they will have to take the retest at the end of May, beginning of June. So there are some exceptions for students that did not pass, called good cause exemptions. So students falling in these categories, we will be meeting with you to discuss if the students need to retest and all of that information. We still do encourage them to participate in the remediation program. So students, if there's anybody that's been retained 2 times prior to 4th grade, because if you do not pass both times in 3rd grade, you do still have to, if we do choose to promote you to 4th grade, you still have to take the IREAD 3 exam. Students with disabilities whose our case conference committee has determined the promotion is appropriate. So for example, if you have an IEP for special education or a speech or anything like that, we will be meeting to discuss what the next steps are. And same thing with our English language learners. They have what are called ILPs, and we will meet. Those all fall under the good cause exemption. Students who do not pass IREAD 3, again, will continue to receive instruction for 3rd grade reading. Even if so if you don't pass in the spring or the summer, so you get 2 chances to take it. If you don't pass either, you will continue to get reading instruction as a third grader. As far as the state goes, you will be officially reported as a third grader. And then I noticed I just forgot to edit this slide because it's not iStep, it's iLearn, but you will still participate, and that has changed. So if they're in fourth grade, they still have to take IREAD 3, but they will still take the fourth grade iLearn assessment. So IREAD 3 and retention. If we do decide to retain anybody, please know that is a last resort, and it is not just based on this test alone. It's based on their reading skills and other academic needs in school, not just this test. We do have to continue providing some support for that reading and make sure that we are differentiating our instruction to make sure that we are meeting the needs of your child. So what can you do to continue to help at home? Review your child's report card and become familiar with their reading level. Making reading a priority at home. We encourage students to read for at least 30 minutes a night. I know they should be filling that out in their reading log. So making sure that they are reading or even reading with them, taking turns reading aloud with your child. As long as they're reading, it doesn't matter what they're reading. It doesn't have to be a long novel, although I know they need to make those red dot points, so that is helpful. But at home, they can also read magazines, comic books, anything with text. Being a good example by reading together with your child, and most importantly, stay in contact with your child's teacher about your child's progress. So one last time, IREAD 3 testing is March 18th through the 22nd. Attendance is very important on these days. They need to be here on time, ready to go. We usually test first thing in the morning when their brains are fresh. So tardiness interrupts it, or if they're too, depending on how late they are, they may not even be able to test with their class, and they might have to test with me individually in the afternoon. That is all for this presentation. If you have any additional questions, please reach out to me, Mrs. Grohar, or your child's teacher. We try to make this testing environment as least stressful as possible, and we will be sending tests home for testing anxiety and all that as it gets closer. Again, that IREAD assessment is March 18th through the 22nd, and iLearn is April 22nd through May 28th. Thank you very much for watching this presentation, and have a great afternoon.